Hello everybody.
Good morning.
Welcome to About 6 Acres. I'm Juana.
And I'm Nick.
And today we're going to be talking about the birds and the bees.
Well, we're really going to be talking about the does and the bucks.
When we first moved out into the country, there was one animal we couldn't wait to add.
Our goats.
Yes, we love everything that is goats. We love goat milk,
Goat cheese.
goat milk soap,
Goat milk lotions.
and the goats themselves.
Because they have funny personalities.
And they're so cute and cuddly, especially if you have a goat kid around. So in order to have a continuous supply of goat milk, we needed to be able to breed our own goats. Midnight was in milk when we got her.
She was in milk for over 200 some days. And in some goats, you can milk, 2 to 3 years, especially like Nigerian dwarf goats, before you have to breed them again. At a certain point, around like 7 months, milk production starts to drop off.
Since her goat milk production was decreasing and we started to see some signs of just the wear on her body, and some of those were her coat was getting a little more brown. If you looked at her hind legs or her hip area, you could tell that her coat was not as shiny. There's a scale that goat owners use in order to determine whether they're anemic or not, called the FMACHA scale, and it's basically you check their eyes and you check how red their eyelids are.
Yeah, the membranes under the eyes that usually tell you like the parasite load. So anytime there's a stress on the goat's body, that's a good indicator of parasite load. So whenever they're in milk and you're milking for a long time, it's stressful in the body, it's using up a lot of nutrients, and you can be more susceptible to parasite overload. So we would check that, and so they would get a little pinkish, and her overall body condition, she would start to lose some more weight and get a little bit skinnier. So we decided then we're going to dry her up and allow her body to recover.
She had always had pretty pinkish eyes, or the eyelids. So if we showed it to you now, it would probably be very, very similar. But again, we were noticing other elements that we just felt like that recovery time was important. So we didn't breed her last year, even though we loved her milk. And so this year she's had a whole year to recover. Her coat looks amazing. I've never seen it this shiny.
Yeah, nice, shiny and dark. She's gained a lot of weight, which is good. So she's fuller in the hips. She's got, I don't want to say a little belly, but her sides are nice and plump.
She's very homey.
Yeah.
So the great thing about it is those are things that you want to do in a healthy goat, so that when you breed them, things are not shocking. The other item that is important with Midnight is that she has the fainting gene. I don't know if this is scientifically proven or not, but I think that every time they faint, it does take a toll on their body. That's my thought.
So it's not necessarily they faint, it's just all their muscles tense up at a certain point, and they were bred that way to produce more lean, I guess, meat, more in like meat goats. So it's not terrible, only when she gets really startled that she will tense up and stiffen up. She hasn't done that much after we've dried her up, which is good. So again, definitely allows her body to recover.
That is another key item that we wanted to make sure that we got her as healthy as possible. The breeder that we got Midnight from told us that when she gave birth last time, she did faint and needed a little bit of help. Why I'm sharing all of this is because we were new to goats and we were new to births, and to add that extra element of, oh no, what if she faints and like has a baby halfway out, like what do we do? We just wanted to minimize the number of factors at play throughout our cycle of learning about goats. We're talking a lot about Midnight, and for good reason. She is one of the goats that we are planning to breed this season. At the end of this video, we'll talk a little bit more about the ones that we bred last year and some of the babies and some of the things that we came across and some of the learnings that we have. I just wanted to start with Midnight again because we're excited about what comes next for her.
This is Midnight. She's my favorite just because we bonded over milking, but Originally when we got her, she was a little bit lighter in color, a little bit browner in the legs. And so when we dried her out, it allowed her body to recover, but we also supplemented with a different type of mineral, which had good copper content too, which really helps in their overall health condition and pregnancy. So it helps them to make sure that they can get pregnant. And so her coat, again, got really, really dark and healthy. She put on some more weight. She's got those high hips. You can't really see her spine. So she's got overall body condition, and we know she's a good milker. She's got nice teats to milk out with, and just, overall her temperament is very, very calm.
She does allow herself to be handled, and as you can see, Nick can sit there and pet her. She doesn't really move. When it's time to milk her, she knows the drill, and she goes straight to the milk stand and just waits for herself to be cleaned and does everything very well. So it is a very easy, very pleasant experience to milk her.
Those are the things, especially when you're thinking about breeding a goat. If you've had a goat before that was in milk and it was easy to milk and she's producing a lot of milk, that's something you want to continue looking for, a characteristic, and continuing to breed. If you have troubles with milking, they're not giving enough milk, it's, the teats aren't large enough, you got to look for characteristics that you want to make the milking experience and your goat experience enjoyable.
Let's talk a little more about the characteristics that Midnight does have that we love. So a big one is what Nick was talking about with the dairy factor of it. She comes from good dairy genes. We've already tasted her milk, and her milk is delicious, which if you're going to be drinking a goat's milk, you want to make sure that you like it, and not every goat milk tastes the same. The Nigerian dwarf milk is creamy. It's delicious. If you look at her, Sean and Gus decide that they want to be bred, and we're still searching for girlfriends for them. So obviously she has a chance to pass down the fainting gene. Doesn't really impact their everyday life. The other thing about Midnight is that she is naturally polled. And what that means is that she doesn't have horns. There's a safety factor there where if you don't have goat with horn, it could be a little bit easier to approach, which is great. But in doing research, when you have a goat that doesn't have horns, you want to try to breed them with another goat that does have horns. The polled gene, so the gene that does not have horns, also comes with the gene that is the hermaphroditic gene. And we can tag the information there for that study, but basically the two come together. So if you breed a polled goat to another polled goat, there is a chance that that would get passed down. And obviously you're trying to eliminate some of those genetic items if you can. So another big reason why we didn't breed Midnight last year was because our buck, Clark, is also polled.
So we had bred our other female does last year, and Brandy actually produced a buckling that has horns. So little Cash Man, if you've been following us. So he is our other little buckling that is at age to breed the girls, and he's been learning from his dad the ways of the buck. The bucks are usually ready to breed around 4 months of age. Size is an important factor. So he's getting big now. He's bigger than some of the does. So I think he's ready to breed with Midnight. Again, he has horns and Midnight does not.
Have a great opportunity for you to have little babies.
You little shy girl.
And I think she's been wanting, once she's seen Lucy, Brandy, and Rosa have babies, I think she's been wanting some of her own. And since she's in heat now, I think it's a good time, especially in the fall, to get her bred. Even though we're new to breeding goats and we bred goats last year, one of the important things is to make sure they have good nutrition and that they're a good size. So the recommendation is to be about 40 pounds before you breed them, which Minnie is, and she's already been bred, so ready to go. That way she can handle the babies. She's been getting good balanced grain and alfalfa, and the alfalfa is good for calcium, so it's build those strong bones, get that milk production going. So she's been on that for a while. And how do you know when she's ready to be bred? They will let you know. The does usually go into estrus, their cycle, every 21 days. And so there's a time, usually 12 to 48 hours, that they can be bred, and they'll let you know. She's not doing it right now, but they'll do something called flagging with their tail. So her tail is straight up, but when she goes over to the boys, she'll start waving that flag like a little fan, her tail like a fan, and you'll basically know that she's ready. She'll also make some noises, little grunts, and at times there'll be some discharge from her back end, but she's been going over, at least the past 2 days, to go visit the boys in the morning instead of eating. So now's the time that we're going to try to breed her with Cash.
Flagging is one big key indicator. The fact that she hasn't been eating in the morning and instead prefers to go visit the boys is another. When they're not in heat, they don't even pay attention to the boys. They basically do their own thing and ignore the boys. The boys are all in rut because it's the fall. We got our girls in January last year. So Lucy and Midnight came to us in January. Brandy and Rosalina came to us last November. But because we knew that milk was our goal, we got 2 boys in the middle of the year. So we got them in June, and they're both brothers. So that would be Clark and Mystico. If you're looking to breed a lot of goats, then coming from bigger litters gives them a more propensity to also have a bigger litter.
Which was true for Lucy. She had triplets, because we bred her to Clark, and then we had the twins.
Lucy was a little bit of an outlier for her first time. First fresheners don't usually have multiples like that, but Lucy did. And then Brandy, it was a little rare in that she only had 1, but there were 2 sacks in there. So we think Cash was just survival of the fittest, and he was fit when he came out.
He was a big boy.
Yes, he was bigger than our week-old baby. The big things about the fall is obviously the boys go into rut. And usually you can tell that it's that time because that's when they'll start acting like big old boys. And they'll start to perfume themselves and cologne themselves with some amazing scents of their own pee. And so what they'll do is they'll literally start peeing and then spray, dip their faces down and spray their whole entire faces with it. They are a mess, but they smell good to each other and they smell good to the girl. The cool things about Cash are several things. He's friends with Sean and Gus.
Which are here again. So they want to make a cameo. You're like, well, if this is your plan, we need to know what the plan is, so we could develop a strategy for protection. So they may be loud.
Can you please go?
So
there's a few things that we love about Cash. Number 1, his size is really good. Number 2, he's got the horns, which we wanted to make sure we had a horned buck to be able to breed to our polled Midnight. He's got gorgeous blue eyes. Midnight also has these really, really pretty melted brown butter eyes, which are gorgeous. When we're looking at Cash, his blue eyes are dominant, and so there's a good chance that the babies will have blue eyes. Not always a given. He's extremely healthy, which we have loved. His coat is very different from Midnight's coat. Midnight has a very solid black coat with the moon spots. He's got all kinds of cool colors. His demeanor is as sweet as Midnight.
Clark is our mature buck, and you can see the orange tinge on his face and on his legs, and that's where he'll perfume himself with the urine when the girls are around to get those girls attracted. In the springtime and the summer, he's totally clean. You will not see that orange anywhere. So this fall, usually August, maybe through November, he's got that Lovely, lovely smell. Cash has a little bit. Oh, and he's peeing on his face. So,
Yeah.
good job.
So there you see it.
He's sniffing. He's letting the ladies know, yo, I'm ready. Let's go.
Oh, Mystico is a wether. He's been banded. And we brought him to be a companion to Clark. So if you're thinking about getting a buck, just know that it works out better if you get a companion for them. Goats are social creatures. They are herd animals. So being by themselves, even if they have a lot of other girls around them, it's just not as pleasant. So it was important to us to make sure that we kept the stress level for him lower, and so that's why we have Mystico here with him. And then we added our sweet Cashman to them because we couldn't leave Cash with the girls. We didn't want him to be constantly rubbing up on them. The goal right now is to get Cash into this overflow area, which hopefully he'll just go into, and then we'll bring, he's not doing it.
Midnight will basically fan her tail and whatever the pheromones scents hang out to let Cash know that she's in heat. Cash will smell. We'll do a little raspberries coming out, so y'all ready?
The key things to know is even though he's in rut now and she's in heat, goats can get pregnant at any time. So the point of being in heat is really that you have a higher chance of them actually getting pregnant. So that's why we have to keep them separate even when they're not in heat.
Because in goats, when they're bred, it takes a couple seconds. And so there's so many people that have been reporting on forums, be like, well, they were only together, I turned my back, they were only together for like a minute. It takes a couple seconds and your goat could be bred.
There he is giving her little kisses.
And raspberries and...
Yeah, just doing the whole romantic song and dance.
So Minnie will basically tell him when his time is up.
At this point, Cash has mounted Midnight a few times. We're going to go ahead and separate them out because obviously we don't want either of them to get hurt, and we don't want to tire either one of them out more than intended.
Try again in the afternoon, after feeding time.
Yeah.
That way their frustration levels go down a little bit. But Midnight is like, hey, you had your chance. But she, she'll still flag. We'll still keep an eye on her.
We will know if she's bred. Usually it takes about a month. Basically, if she skips her heat cycle. So in 21, 28 days, if she hasn't had another heat cycle, then we know that she has been bred. You can also send away for test results or do a pregnancy test. For us, we'll probably just wait to see how the month goes. After the first breeding cycle, you learn a lot about your goats and their gene pool. Sometimes if they haven't been your goat, you're getting them from several different places. It just takes a little bit of time to put it all together. So we have Rosalina here who has blue eyes, which again are dominant, and she has horns, which are recessive. And you can see that her baby is polled, which we had bred them to Clark, so they would be polled. And she's got buttery eyes, which are recessive. So that lets me know that both Clark and Rosalina have a recessive gene in there. So she's got a blue dominant gene and a recessive gene. And so does Clark, which is why she's got these beautiful buttery caramel eyes. And then we have our sweet Aurora here, who's got the blue eyes. So she got one of the dominant eyes. And then she also is polled, which again is the dominant feature. So she got both dominant features. In contrast, we have Lucy. Lucy was a quarter Nubian. Her grandmother was Nubian, so she's a little bit bigger than our other goats. She's got those Nubian features. Her ears, you could see, are a little bit different than the smaller ears that the other girls have. Hers look a little bit more like helicopter. Hello, my sweetie. She's got gorgeous features like the wattles that she passed it down only to Poppy. Poppy has the gorgeous blue eyes, which you can see that Lucy had 2 recessive genes because she wound up with those beautiful butter eyes. And then Whitey wound up looking exactly like his dad. He's got some of his features. He's got the dominant blue eyes. He's got the dominant polled gene, so no horns for him. Lucy did have that gene, which is why you see beautiful Poppy there with Lucy's wattles and Lucy's horns.
And then we all know Brandy, which we're currently milking. Brandy's very good at hiding. There you are, Brandy. Hello, girl. So Brandy's baby is little Cashman. So he's almost the size of Brandy right now. Brandy, you got a good boy? Yeah? Awesome.
At this point, you might be thinking, does it make sense to keep a buck within your herd? And I'd love to hear Nick's answer first.
I think it's a good idea. You know the health of the buck right away because you're taking care of it. You know the qualities and the traits that you're looking for from that buck. Feeding them is hay, so there is a resource out of that. To me, there's less stress of finding a breeder somewhere where you either have to take your doe to their farm for maybe a couple days and not know, again, the health of that herd, or what parasites could be there, or what diseases could be there. And then you also got to think about, you may have to change that buck out. So that means get a new buck either every year because you don't want to interbreed, again, your buck with the kids that they just have, because then there's more genetic issues that could result. So another reason I think to have a buck on hand is you can also offer buck studding services. We don't do that, but it's something that we could do in the future with Clark, because again, we have triplets, twins, so he's a proven breeder. We'll see how Cash does. But if you are looking for like stud services for your does, do your due diligence, do research, find a trusted breeder in your area. So it's good to have a mentor as well. And, you know, again, look at trusted sites for your goat research, and ask, has there been any diseases, any issues in your herd? Because again, you don't want anything to transmit back to yours. If you can have your own buck and go through rut season and manage the smell, I think it's worth it.
So if you're looking at it from a health of your herd, it definitely makes sense to have a buck. If you're looking at it from a financial standpoint, if you have the pasture area and you have the ability to keep the buck separate, then it definitely makes sense, and it's not that much more costly. Sorry, our goats are just pushing us around. But if you don't have enough land to give them pasture area, and if you're having to supplement their feed, then there's that extra consideration about cost. It does cost a little bit more to keep them this way. We're obviously attached to both Clark and Mystigo. We need to rehome Cash at some point. The key is the market is so saturated that being in the breeding business is not what it probably was a few years ago. We talked about the best time to breed a buck. The best time to breed a doeling is actually after they're a year old. So prior to that, if you think about it like a teenager, yes, they can have babies, but it's probably not the optimal time given that their body is going through so many other changes. So it's the same thing with goats. Usually you want to wait until after they're a year old, and you know that 40-pound mark is one for Nigerian dwarfs. If you have a bigger breed, then it's probably a different number that you'll want to double check on. But all of our girls here are obviously too small right now to be bred. We wouldn't breed them anyway because Clark is their dad, so we would have to get a different buck. Right now our intention is to rehome both Aurora and Buttercup, and then we also intended to rehome Cash. We will keep you posted on Minnie's progress. We probably in a month we will know, maybe. And if we were not successful, we might try again with her. We are probably going to breed one of the other girls again to Clark. It'll probably be Lucy because we just feel like her health is probably the strongest. As of now, given our land and given what we have, Midnight is it for us and for milk for next year. Oh my gosh, look at this cuteness, dude. Who could resist? Lucy and her minis. Just so adorable. So thank you for joining us on talking about goats and breeding them. We're so excited that you came along with us.
And remember, you are awesome and you are loved.
Until next time. I mean, look at this face. Look at this face.
Let's see, what do you got to say to everybody?
It's just the best face. Look at these two faces. So cute.
Thanks for joining us and watching. Come on,
Look at
little baby.
this.
You want to get up here?
Come
Come on, get some love.
Just so cute.
Get some love.
Now that Midnight had her time with Cashman, she's not interested in boys anymore. She's just sitting there hanging out. I will say one more thing that is very cool if Midnight does have babies in the spring, but it's another chance for my sister to name some of our baby goats. So she and her daughter have done an amazing job in naming them. They've named Lucy, named Poppy, my little poppy seed. They named cute little Buttercup over here, my cute little Princess Buttercup. So Sonia, if you're watching, get ready, start picking out some names because I've got a little Midnight that hung out with Cashman and they're gonna need baby names. So better make them good.